One reoccurring theme in this never-ending nightmare of a pandemic is that there's a stark difference between the way conservatives and liberals react to the pandemic. In general, libs have been following the advice of scientists and staying at home when possible, socially distancing and wearing masks when they go outside without feeling as though the mask itself personally threatens their masculinity or femininity or whatever identity they feel is very important to uphold. While conservatives have tended to distrust scientists and insist that their personal freedom to not wear a mask is more important than society's grandmother's freedom to not suffocate to death. I might be a little biased because it's been 8 months. 1.3 million people are dead. 250,000 Americans. Anyway, because of these stark differences, a lot of psychological research these days is based on solving this problem. How do we trick grown adults who don't understand germ theory into behaving responsibly in order to end this deadly pandemic? With that in mind, there are 2 relevant papers that were published recently that I'd like to talk about. First up, we have Hearing from Both Sides, Differences Between Liberal and Conservative Attitudes Toward Scientific and Experiential Evidence, published at the end of October in Political Psychology. Researchers wanted to know whether or not conservatives truly value expertise compared to the opinion of people with no expertise. So they gathered about 900 Americans that were pretty evenly split between conservatives and liberals, with a few libertarians and others sprinkled in. Then they had them read an article in which a researcher debunked one of 4 popular misconceptions. Either it was the uselessness of the Myers-Briggs personality test, the fact that managed stocks rarely outperform the market, how magnetic bracelets don't actually relieve pain, or how there's no such thing as a lucky streak when gambling. The article then cited someone else contradicting the expert, contradicting the researcher, like a casino manager in that last example saying, "But I've seen lucky streaks." They found that conservatives were more likely to see both points of view as legitimate, giving more credence to the rejecter and less to the researcher than liberals did. Interestingly, the researchers found that this could be explained using a tool they call the Feelings Are Truth scale. You know that meme where conservatives like Ben Shapiro shout, "Facts don't care about your feelings"? Well, it turns out that researchers have found conservatives are actually the ones who are more likely to build their worldview off of their fee-fees. The Feelings Are Truth scale involves subjects saying how much they agree or disagree with the 5 following statements. Number 1, people know deep down what's true and what's not. Number 2, some people have intuitive senses of what is true and what is not. Number 3, a gut belief that something is not true is a good reason to think it's not true. Number 4, intuition can reveal more truth about a situation than objective facts. And number 5, gut feelings are a kind of truth. Conservatives were more likely to strongly agree with all of those points, meaning that they're more likely to say, well, that guy seems like he knows what he's talking about, so I'll believe him. Even though that guy is just some jabroni, like literally just an internet commenter replying to an actual scientist. And I'm not being over the top here. They literally did a follow-up study in which the rejecter wasn't somebody with relevant experience, but no real expertise, like a casino manager. But in the follow-up study, it was literally just like an internet commenter, just some random person saying, "I don't think that's true." And in that case, still conservatives were significantly more likely to rate the rejecter as having as much legitimacy or more legitimacy than the scientist. What do we do with this information? Well, the researchers point out that maybe news organizations should think a little harder before they present both sides as equally legitimate. Like the CDC says, stay at home or wear a mask when you go out. But Donald Trump says, who cares? Just do whatever you want. COVID's no big deal. Like, you don't have to say that second part. It's not true. And an unfortunately large percentage of the population can't tell it's not true, or they just don't care that it's not true. So maybe just say the first part, the true part. The second study I wanted to mention is called Getting Conservatives and Liberals to Agree on the COVID-19 Threat, published in the Journal of the Association for Consumer Research back in September. These researchers surveyed 600 people back in May to find out whether or not they were complying with pandemic mitigation guidelines, and also how much they personally thought the coronavirus was out to get them. Like, literally out to get them. This was a study of agency, which just means how much a thing or a being has a purpose and the ability to decide whether to act and how to act. A threat could have zero agency, like, say, an earthquake, which is just going to happen randomly, and it's nothing personal, but now you're going to die. Or a threat could have very high agency, like a serial killer that is specifically hunting for people who look exactly like you. Conservatives tend to care more about a threat when it has more agency, which might be why they're always declaring war on inanimate objects, like the war on drugs or the war on Christmas. I know, they think that liberal atheists started the war on Christmas, but I assure you, I shall not take arms up against Santa Claus. Bill O'Reilly is the one who invented that particular war. So it turns out this research did find that conservatives were more likely to want to stop the pandemic if it was presented to them as something with a large amount of agency. In their first study, they found that most people, liberal, conservative, whatever, thought that the virus had very little agency, which, for the record, it doesn't. It's a virus. It just does what viruses do. Among those people, conservatives were more likely to not really care about the pandemic compared to liberals. But among people who did think that the virus had agency, conservatives were almost as likely as liberals to care about it. In a second study, the researchers manipulated whether or not the subjects would think of the virus as having agency. To make some of them think that it does, they had them read an article describing that the virus seeks to infect any human it comes in contact with, and that it has a strong motive to use humans as a means to spread. A control group read an article that said that the virus can infect any human it comes in contact with, and that it is spread as more humans contract it. Low agency. Sure enough, conservatives who read the high agency article were more likely to say that they would wear masks and practice social distancing compared to those in the control group. They were still worse at it than liberals in both groups, but it definitely helped. The researchers point out that liberals were fine either way. It didn't matter whether they thought the virus had agency or not. So talking about the virus as though it's a person really has no downside unless you're a total bleeding heart like I am and you start to think of it as a pet that you want to keep around. I'd like to point out that I'm a damn genius, and I had this idea way back in March when I tweeted, scientists need to stop trying to develop a COVID-19 vaccine. No one in the United States will take it because they think it'll give them autism. They need to start working on a magic ray that will enlarge the virus to the size that we can shoot it with our guns. Dear Lord, I'm like the Nostradamus of magical thinking. In conclusion, I would like to really highlight that coronavirus is coming to get you. You, personally. Coronavirus is an evil, spiky boy who wants to crawl into your nose and make a little home in your lungs where it'll curl up with a book. He wants you to not even know he's there so that you'll go eat turkey with your grandparents, because then he can fly out of your mouth and into theirs and then choke them to death. So that they won't even see Christmas. Spiky Boy wants to kill Nana and Papa for Christmas. Don't let him. Spiky Boy hates masks. They stop him from flying out of your mouth at your Nana. We've declared war on Spiky Boy, and your weapon is a mask. and also FaceTime and grocery delivery services. Please do not let coronavirus win.